There you go.
Okay, we can call this meeting to order. This is a meeting of the Capital Improvement Program Committee, and it is February 15th, 2022 at 6:30 p.m. And the first item on our agenda is present to speak. So is anyone here present to speak? And all right, I don't see anybody raising their hand, and I don't see any virtual hand raising either. So I think we can move on to approval of minutes. And that is what I was going to ask Kelsey about. I know she had sent me a set of minutes from last week today. And I wasn't sure if we could approve them because I'm not sure that they went out to the public. I don't think it did, but I haven't checked all of my emails today. Does anybody know if they saw minutes today? No, I don't see it. So, and I don't remember, did we approve? What meeting minutes did we not approve? I think we're caught up. I don't know.
Table the reading of the minutes.
Okay. All right, so the next item, oh, is there a second? I can't see. Hold on. Oh, Erica's seconding. All right, any discussion about that? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, any abstentions? Any no's? All right. All set.
Kelsey
then.
will be here shortly, Christina, but no, the minutes are not on the website.
Okay. Then the next item is continuation of the plan discussion. And we have Donna here, and I'm trusting Donna has a nice version of the spreadsheet to share.
Yes. Okay, so I am on standby for,
Should be able to share, Donna.
yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
So Donna, can you walk us through like where we were last week and what you've changed and what our bottom lines are?
Yes. So year one, bottom line, $709,500. And I don't think I changed anything in year one, but I did send out a list of questions just to make sure that everything is the way the committee wants it. There were some things that I saw as I was going over the plan that I wanted just to have input from everybody. Okay, so year two, bottom line is $780,450. And that is in line with our goal for local spending for year two, $709,500. Oh yeah, there it is, $709,500. Let's just double check everything. Year three, $780,450. Yeah, and that's there, right there. Then this is the year that we have planned to borrow money for 3 projects: the school building committee, the addition at Wellington Fire Station 1, and road improvements. So that means the year following, we are going to have to pay interest on the money that we borrowed. And I put that right up on the top. And I estimated that to be $245,000. And included in that is the cost to issue bonds for those 3 projects. So in that year is a big increase in local funding. So it's 2 million, 2.3 million. Then this year for local funding, it's just plain bond payments, no other local spending. Then the following year, we have all the bond payments. And I just left no increase in capital because we had a pretty big increase the year before. So I left it flat. And I put a little bit of money into the reserve fund so that it would stay flat. And there are no local spending other than what's going in the reserve fund. It's just the bond payments and a little bit of money in the savings account. And same thing for the final year of the plan, kept the spending flat. It's just only bond payments and a little bit of money going into the reserve fund for savings. And the school projects are all zeroed out because we are budgeting to have a building project for the schools. So that is where we are.
Okay. So the one thing that I'm wondering is what happened to like some of the, like there was a truck for Public Works in like 24, 25, I think. But we had moved out because it was going to be one after another and then we moved it. So did that go away or?
Okay, so let's look. So there's a dump truck in 2023, it says.
Yeah.
For coming out of reserve fund. And then you think there's another one in the next year, skip a year, and then 24, 25.
Yeah,
You think
right.
there should be a truck in 24, 25.
Yeah, that's
Okay,
line
so-
19.
Yep, it is line 19. Yep,
Okay.
it's a lease. Yep,
So
and the
when you
next year,
said that you basically had taken out all local, like it was basically just the lease and bond payments that goes into that 2.4 million.
yes, lease and
But
bond payments.
there are a couple of, you're adding a couple of leases, I'm guessing for other things as well. Because it's not like we're not going to do anything. There's off budget things being funded,
Yes.
and then there's lease payments on a couple of new. I don't remember anything else, but
Yes, that you're right. There's the other things are off budget, and there's one new lease payment in 24, 25 that starts in 24, 25, and then it's going to go for 7 years.
Mhm.
So we have 3 years of a lease payment for a dump truck on this plan.
Okay. And is there anything that was requested that we are pushing out or just not funding at all? Other than the school stuff that we talked about.
Well, I guess we have some risk answering that question, Christina. We have some risk on the ARPA things because we did take the pleasure of moving them off budget for this plan by sending them to ARPA. If it's determined for whatever reason that's not appropriate or ARPA decides not to fund some of those, then that might change this plan in the future. Or it might hold those projects up, I'm not sure, but I guess that's a one risk to the plan. And then the other risk we've talked about some, and Erica's made the point, is if the school project in all likelihood means one or both buildings become surplus, there may be new things which are not requested, of course, yet, but there may be new things in the future that are needed. Like one might need a roof anyway, if it's going to become town office, or if it's going to become, some other public use, then that's a risk in future years in the plan. But we don't know that right now. The only reason I bring it up is it does show up in the requests. If you consider that the school is requesting a new roof, it's sort of in there. We're zeroing it right now, but it may come back.
Right. And that's what there is funding to do a general facility study. Is that right, Erica? It's in here
Yeah.
somewhere.
It's in year 2.
Mhm.
Oh, and it's for $20,000. So if you go down, I think selectmen items, facility study to municipal buildings in year 2. So, and the reason I put it, I requested in that year is anticipating some movement on the school building committee side, and that we may have some idea what direction that project will go in by then, and then look into a study.
So a year from now, we should know more about all of these things, which, you know, kind of means this is a 1-year plan, but we see how the pieces fit into a 5-year plan. It's just going to take a lot of fine tuning.
Right, and I think it's either going to be a large bond or a renovated to new, or in my opinion, a renovated to new or new school, or taking care of all these projects that have been sitting for several years as we go through this process. And I know Phil has said to us before, he hasn't added anything on. So I think we're going to see more. So in a different configuration, but the dollar amount may be close to the same end result.
I think, Erica, that's a good point. At least over a couple of years, if we had to outlay large amounts, you're probably talking, you know, maybe there's a couple of $1 million worth of projects or more to get the schools in shape if there is no major construction project. And then you're not doing a 30 or 40-year bond and spreading it out. You're probably doing it, you might do it as a shorter bond, or you may just pay for those projects.
Yeah, Donna, I really appreciate the work that you put into taking these things off, but I think it was, I know from my perspective, it was really important for us to have a plan, and this shows us moving alongside the school building committee towards a project, as their goal is to present a project. What that looks like still remains to be seen, and our plan kind of mirrors that. So it was a lot of work putting them on, and then a lot of work to take them off and reconfigure. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, I would agree with that too. Could we scroll to back to the dump trucks again, just so I can look at that again? I was still wrapping my brain around it when we scrolled. Okay, so was line 19. Okay, that's the second dump truck. I got you. And then line 12 is the soon coming dump truck.
And that's paying for it outright. So we really would put ourselves back in line for the lease portion of this
Right, because we
football
wouldn't
game,
be
I
spreading
think.
it over years. You get it out of the way, right?
Yeah, so if I'm not mistaken, we did one this year for 7 years and then 2 years. So we'll have that kind of buffer that we had talked about before, if we stick to a solid replacement schedule without any lapse. I think it puts us in a little bit better position.
Yeah. Okay.
And the other thing we talked about with this dump truck, which doesn't really get reflected in the plan, is that this one this year will be what's the word? Not the old ones. We're not keeping the old one.
No,
So there's going to be a
either be traded
trade-in.
in or sold.
So, and the hope would be that the trade-in would lower that 225 by some amount. Right.
Yeah, if it knocks 20 grand off it, that's great. That's 20 grand into something else, or 20 grand saved on the plan. Yeah, this goes back to what I brought up before, and the more I've thought about it since then, I think particularly because we're looking at such a big crunch coming in this budget, that we should even, I'm not sure we can require it, but I think we should send, if we agree as a committee, we should send the word that all of these big purchases, the Willington 1 SUV, the this dump truck, and the new ambulance, that they all whatever the old outgoing vehicles are get traded in. You know, the ambulance we currently have just got some motor repairs. Hopefully it's got some value, maybe a few tens of thousands of dollars. And I'm assuming they're planning on trading it in. I'm just saying maybe we should make that clear. And maybe if they get a second ambulance to help with handling this time period, maybe that gets traded in also. Maybe that takes $60,000 or $80,000 off the cost of the new ambulance. You know, take $25,000 off to the cost of the new dump truck, and maybe we get $3,000 or $4,000 off the cost of the new Willington Hill SUV. We've saved $100,000 or more on the plan, which I think is real money.
I agree, Mike. It's not, and for the average taxpayer, they're not going to see it kind of flesh out within the plan. The dollars will go back into the general fund, but if it saves us on the overall spending in this plan, it's important. And I know we've heard Troy say multiple times, and I can assure you that we're taking a look at all the vehicles that we have, and you know what what we can trade in. And this we know is one, and that's been the plan for this one. We're not looking to keep it any longer than we have to. See Troy shake his head. It's been a problem child. It's time for it to go. It's ready for someone else to love.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree, Erica. The $100,000, you know, it can be how that shows up. It's not going to all of a sudden drop everyone's tax bills or something like that. But if we save $100,000 in a year or two on this plan, that might get in a you know, a $40,000 project for the school, or you know, whatever. That might pay for all the sidewalk projects or something like that. So if we
I
find
agree, or
it'll be real money.
you know, in a couple of years, we've got $100,000 towards a sweeper. You know, if we can save on some of
Right.
these trucks now, it will leave some potential money in the reserve fund to maybe do that, and instead of going in the direction we were. So we may be able to change the
We could
source
pay
of
for
funding.
something. We could pay for something like a excavator.
We're going to do that this year, though.
Come on, Troy, you're supposed to chuckle at that.
Okay, does anybody have any questions or comments or concerns?
Are we actually ready to call this a plan?
Yeah, I mean, my only concern, and it's not with this plan is a solid plan, but the place where we're at is, you know, depending on this school building committee direction is really going to steer CIP after this year, if there's some movement in next year, right? And so that's really a concern about what that's going to look like. But with all the information we have now, I think we've done a great job moving in this direction.
Mhm. Erica, have you seen like this 709 plugged into your budget yet? And
I sure have.
oh,
It's scary.
okay.
So right now we have a budget meeting tomorrow, and then bring that book with me, but we're looking at just about a 10% increase. So, you know, there's a considerable amount of money in this added, and you know, trying to see where we can make some cuts on either side. But at some point on both ends, we're having to invest in our town, in our facilities, and our resources, and that's going to come with a little bit of a price that's going to be eye-opening. But we've kicked some cans down the road pretty far. So right now, with these numbers plugged in, we're looking at a just over a 10% increase on the Board of Selectmen side.
Hmm.
So this is when the board, when this committee is ready to move this plan forward to the Board of Selectmen, and that's presented, and I assume Christina will see you there, then there's going to have to, you know, be some conversation, because it's going to look like an easy place for us to make a cut if we make a cut to this. But the trickle down effect, if we were to cut at any of those numbers, specifically the dollars we're putting into the reserve fund, which I believe is just over 345,000, affects the rest of this plan. And so explaining that to the board so they can see the bigger picture is really important. We can't, you know, if we were to say, let's cut this by $100,000 to make things look a little bit easier on the other side, that affects what we can do down the road and kind of turns upside down the whole plan.
Mhm.
So I anticipate lots of conversation about that tomorrow when we're talking budget, and then we're ready to move on both things. Donna, can I ask to see the sources
Yes.
tables that you put together? So the things that we're paying for out of the general fund are now all in there. So if this were to be cut, let's say the suggestion is made to cut dollars out of the reserve fund, you know, what would that do to the plan? I apologize.
Yeah, so depending on the year, that's a really big hit.
Well, if we're talking about this year, Mike, and there, if you look in this
Right.
plan, there are quite a few projects that
Yeah.
are coming from the reserve fund and
Yes.
what that would look like. And if the selectmen were to suggest that kind of reduction, it would throw off this whole plan that this committee's
Yeah.
worked hard on, and the board then having to reimagine that plan or say yes or no. I'm just trying to anticipate that kind of line of questioning and what it would look like to be able to give them an answer.
Yes, I agree. I was making the point that it has a trickle down effect. You cut
Oh,
it
yeah.
out of this year, then it's going to trickle down to each year after that. And some years
Yeah.
there is $100,000 left to cover.
Yeah, I'm just not sure if we didn't do it in year one, that we could, you know, how many projects would have to be cut in year one?
Hmm.
If that were the case.
Well, be ready for those 2 meetings in the middle and end of March when the Board of Finance is doing the actual crunching of the numbers.
Yeah, well, and for me, Mike, it's when the Board of Selectmen are looking at this, if we're looking to where to cut in the budget, this is within our budget. And so do
Right.
we, and again, without lots of explanation from CIP, it's, well, there's $345,000 there. Let's just reduce that. But reducing that affects so much more. So it's starting this fiscal year with, if I'm reading this right, Donna, we'd be starting this fiscal year with $608,000 and we're looking at spending $487,000.
Yes. Adding 345.
Can you just for discussion purposes, show me what it would look like to add only 245?
I can do that, Erica, but
Okay.
your total spending
Mhm.
for CIP is only increasing by $64,000. So that if you want to keep your CIP spending flat, you could only take 64,000
64.
out of this budget. So let's do it and see what it looks like. I can see kind of, you know, you have the wiggle room for $64,000. I can see that.
Yeah,
So-
with those big payments coming up, it's daunting to think about.
If you put in $64,000 less, see what this looks like. So you're okay
Okay.
in the reserve.
Okay. Thank you, Donna.
Yep.
So Erica, you mentioned guidance.
Yeah.
Should we talk about the cover letter that goes with the report?
I will defer to our chair.
Sure, Mike. And it's really more of like the little booklet. Is that what you're talking about? Like when once it's approved and we explain like this is what all of this is.
Yeah, there's usually some sort of descriptive information at the beginning.
Mhm. Yep. Yep. So I can start. I mean, we don't know if the selectmen are gonna like this plan, and then we don't know if the Board of Finance is gonna like the plan, but in the next month, we'll be I'll start drafting it as soon, and we can make edits to it as things get changed or if they get solidified.
Can I just ask a question?
Mhm.
As a new person, perhaps this isn't evident to everybody else except me, but so we were going from this year, I can't really see the numbers very well, but like 700 and something $1,000 in spending, and then increasing that by more than twice when we have all of the bond payments and stuff. So basically, this plan is incumbent on a tax increase, or some other figuring out how to pay for it. So as someone said, it's a 1-year plan with 4 years attached to it with a big question mark.
Kind of, yeah. So the specifics of how that's going to happen, like different things can happen. We can have increases in revenue from grand list growth, or we could have decreases in revenue, and that will impact it. We have, there's a lot of things that are going to go into the bottom line of if and what a tax increase would be, and that this is only one variable in the whole thing. So it's hard to predict, but a number that large, I think we can all agree that that's probably going to be some kind of a tax increase, but what it would be at that time. Plus, we don't even know for sure that, well, we know for sure that those aren't the exact numbers because we don't have, anything more than just an estimate at this point of what we would think. So there's a lot of fine tuning that would need to happen in all three of those big projects that we're talking about bonding. So they might not even be in the same year. They might not be those amounts, but this is the best information we have at the moment, and that's all we can use. But
Okay.
yeah, and I think if there was a way around looking at some kind of a tax increase, I think I'll be trying to find it, or would have already known it.
Yeah.
But like Erica said, like this is something we've been putting off and putting off and putting off, and now the time is here where something's going to be decided. And like they said, either it's the school, one of these projects would happen, either building a new school or renovating one of the schools, or these other projects which wouldn't be
Right.
bonded and would still make the local funds be at least double of what they are now. Maybe not
Yeah.
triple, but yeah. So
As we look at this plan next year, we'll hear tomorrow night from SBC if there's, a proposed timeline. But on top of that, there's money in this year for, I believe the design piece on Willington 1's addition, which will give us a more defined number. And then on the engineering portion of the roads, which will give us a better number. So when we move forward next year, we should be looking at some real concrete figures. So the picture should get a lot clearer after this year. We're in the concept phase, and we'll move into a more defined. Was I correct in that? Did I see engineering?
Yeah,
think so.
28.
There you go. Okay, thanks.
Does that answer your question, Jen?
Sorry. Oops.
Oh, whoops, I can't see her. Does anybody else have any questions? So normally, like if we're at a point where we think we're good with at least year one, and maybe we're good with all of the years, I think we usually do that in 2 different motions. So if someone thinks we're ready to do that, then they can make a motion, I guess. Mike,
I move that we accept our current plan for year one of the 5-year plan.
Christina, do you want to go down the list of questions?
oh yeah, where are the list of questions?
So,
Can I
So-
second that for discussion and then we can go
Oh,
through the
yes.
questions?
Yes, Erica. Okay, so now we're gonna in discussion phase and
yeah,
Donna has
so,
questions.
yeah, so the first question is on the Village Hill Drainage Project. And I just want to make sure that there is enough money budgeted in the plan because last year we had increments of 35,000, 35,000, 40,000, 40,000, 40,000. And this year in the plan, there's only 60,000. So I'm just questioning if $60,000 is enough to finish all of the drainage on Village Hill Road. Or did some of the money that should be carried over but didn't get carried over?
Money
Um,
in this fiscal year, correct?
Yep,
Right, and
60,
so we have-
yes,
And
current
we
year,
haven't,
and we haven't spent it.
and we haven't spent it. So can we carry that over?
Oh,
What was committed for 21, 22?
I think we can carry that over with Board of Finance approval.
Okay,
So that would give us,
because of the work that had to be done during our normal construction season, this was put off like everything else because of the rains and the damage from those. So if we can carry it over, it will give us a little bit more money. And Troy, correct me if I'm wrong, the cost of everything significantly increased.
Yeah, that was what was it last year? 35,000, I believe. Yeah,
Yeah.
so that
sounds right.
the price of the pipe and everything literally like tripled on some of the plastic. Like the 18-inch pipe was last year was like 300 and now it's like $700 for a 20-foot stick. So it's literally like the price has gone up huge. So that's where the $60,000 would cover that phase of the 6 catch basins, the stone, the asphalt to pave those, and the pipe to be installed with those.
I think the other part Don is asking is, we had it broken down over 5 years, and this year it was just in 1 year. So 1 year, Donna, is not enough to complete the entire project.
Yeah.
So it's in there, but we haven't accounted for the rest of the project yet.
Okay, so then, do you want to add money to the out years? So last year we had a total of $190,000 for Village Hill drainage. So far, we have 95,000 for Village Hill drainage.
And Troy, the 60, how far is you anticipating the 60,000 going
I
to
mean,
take you?
with that
6.
190, what was it, 95,000 there? I mean, to do
Yep.
the drainage and the catch, there's more than enough. There's not enough to pave that road from the bridge going up. You'd have plenty to put the drainage in if the town does it. We wouldn't use all of that for that money to put the drainage. There was 16 catch basins total,
And your plan was to do 4 a year? Or
6 a year. And we might even get more. It all depends on what happens. If the digging's great, I mean, if we keep going, we could get them all in. Don't hold me to that, but I'm just saying it's all in how it goes. It depends how the weather goes too.
So if we did 60 over 3 years, it's 180,000.
Well, you've got 95 in this coming year if we carry over the 35 that's in the current fiscal year.
Yes,
Gives
Yes.
you
So
95.
and if this plan stays, you're not renting a machine with that. So you're saving a
Right.
little bit where you had anticipated some rental. So if we did 50 and 50, that gives us 100. There's 190, 2 out years at 50,000.
So for year one, we're okay though.
Yes, and there should be money left over. I mean, there should be money left over from that 60,000. I boosted it up due to the price of what the pipe and stuff, the cost, the catch basins went up. And basically everything went up, and some of it went up about $20 and some of it went up $150. It's especially even with the catch basin pieces.
But Troy, I'm saying if we plan for 50,000 in the next 2 years, that should cover. If with what you have now, you're able to go a little bit farther, we can
Yes.
adjust that in the plan, leaving dollars.
Absolutely.
But I think Donna's whole point was we didn't carry over the entire project.
Okay.
So Donna, with that, what funding source would you recommend for the next 2 years?
Deep an option.
Maybe.
You
I
think?
think
Not,
for
st- I'm sorry, not steep. I meant low SIP. I said steep, but I meant low SIP.
Oh, let's see if we have 60,000 for LoSiP. So we actually
Do not.
don't
I'm
have
reading
it.
this right.
So maybe I would say reserve fund spending, or you know what, I would maybe book it to 930 and then reduce what we're putting in the savings account by 50,000. So we
Mm.
stay in balance.
And based on the exercise we did earlier, we can afford that 100,000 in the reserve account.
Mhm.
Well, 64 anyway.
I think we can. Okay, so okay, it's a total of 160,000 plus 35 that we have in the current year. So that's a total of 195,000 for Village Hill drainage.
Okay, so I made a note, but Donna or Erica, one of you will make a note for us to come back at a Board of Finance meeting at some point to do transfers. And we'll move that into a non-lapsing location.
Yes, if it doesn't get done by June 30th, we'll request a transfer to a non-lapsing capital project.
Okay,
Troy?
This might be a stupid question, but so right now that money's in there. So actually, could I go and buy the pipe and the catch basins for that with that money right now?
Yes,
Mhm.
So if that's in there, so, okay, so if I go and buy all that stuff for what it is now, we might not need that whole $60,000. You know, what I'm trying to say, we could say, there could be some savings there on for what it is. I didn't realize that money was there.
It's there is, I'm trying to pull that spreadsheet down. It's a 930 now.
yes.
Because we actually have a meeting with Carl on Thursday, so I can go over these, these plans and start ordering some of that pipe so we have it
Yeah, so
available.
actually my note on the $35,000 is, it is for the supplies plus renting an excavator.
Yeah, we'd have to take the rental part out of it. Like that would, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, with
Yeah,
the
yeah.
price of the pipe right now is, yeah.
okay, we ready to move on to the next?
Yes, the next question is about the Liska Road Culvert Replacement Project. And last year, the engineering for that was budgeted in Erica's budget, 183,590, the engineering line, and this year we have it budgeted in LOSUP. And I'm wondering if we can just keep the engineering cost in the general fund budget. Since
So-
we had a conversation about it and decided to do it last year, do we want to stick with that?
We can't, I believe this was one that Carl wanted us to go with, or is it just Schofield Road, Troy?
I believe he did say that he would have another engineering firm
Right.
come in and do that. I mean, we can ask him again on Thursday.
Yeah,
So
Thank-
Donna, are you just asking about the fund source or are you asking?
Yep. I'm asking about the fund source.
'Cause
Could it be-
I think we did have those as 930, but we moved them because we were trying to bring 930 down to a reasonable. Well,
Yeah, well, I would,
But-
put it in 183, which is totally off the capital budget because it's only $6,000. I would put it in Erica's operating budget.
Donna, can
Uh,
you, I don't have that at my disposal. Can you tell me where that department sits currently?
I would have to open up my accounting software
Okay,
for see what's been spent this year. I think we have 20,000 budgeted, or let's see. Let me see.
no, I don't think we. Maybe.
It's 183, consulting engineers, public works. We have $10,000 budgeted. As of December 31st, we spent $500.
Okay,
So we have it, we're,
wait, the project he's working on now, I don't anticipate taking that much.
You could do that in the current fiscal year is what we're saying. And
That's what she's saying, right? That's what we had discussions
Oh,
about last year, and we kind of
I'm-
held off on that because of the amount of damage we had this summer, and thinking we were gonna need to be doing a lot more engineering on the damaged roads that we had.
yeah. I'm saying we do it in 22, 23 out of Erica's budget, out of the selectmen's operating budget.
We might be able to start it in 21,
Yeah,
22 though, Donna.
You could.
Mhm.
I think $6,000 should be in the operating budget and not in the capital budget.
And I think it ended up here because there's a whole project, the pieces of the larger project were just broken up.
Yeah.
That's why you see something under $10,000. I tried really hard this year to not send anything that was under 10.
so Donna, what are you just, if you were to do that, would you just delete it, take that $6,000 off basically, and then remember to
Yes.
put it in the operating budget?
Yes,
Right, and I
So-
don't know that we need to increase the operating budget in order to do it,
Right,
Yeah.
right.
is what we're
know.
saying.
yeah,
Right.
that's what I'm saying. I think the operating budget can absorb $6,000 for engineering for Liska Road culverts.
Okay.
Okay, the next question
Close it down the
is
road.
the purchase of the new ambulance and the vehicle for Wellington Hill. I just want to make sure that you want both of those. I think both of them have to stay together, and you want both of them in year one.
Can I ask a question about that? And Chief Moore is on here, may be able to answer that. He's, I think when he presented this, he spoke about if we committed to this next year in order to get it a year and a half down the road, we'd have to order it next year. So does that mean we wouldn't be paying a lease payment potentially next year if it takes, let's say 18 months to actually get the vehicle? But in order to do that, we'd have to commit some dollars and put the order in. What does that look like, Donna?
So what I don't think we want to see is a $75,000 lease by itself in 1 year, and the next year a $300,000 lease by itself in the next year. Because if you can put 2 or 3 vehicles together, you can get a better interest rate on a lease. And then
I
That's-
agree,
that's
but if
my
we're not
thinking.
paying, but if we're not paying for the ambulance on your side of the table, what does that look like?
Well, if you're not paying a lease payment? Well, if you're not going to pay,
We-
is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Not paying a lease payment. Okay. The thing is that when you borrow the money, you make a payment, right? So we're borrowing, or if we're going to borrow, either both of these vehicles are going to be in year 1 or in year 2.
So the time for it takes to deliver is obviously a big unknown here. What I can tell you is I talked to the chief at UConn a couple days ago about something else, and he brought up to me that he just ordered a new ambulance. And he has a commitment from the vendor that he will have it within 9 months. So he's ordering it right now, which is, I guess, February, right? Yeah. So he will have it within this calendar year, next fiscal year. So if that holds true, then it would
My
line.
point is moot. Yeah,
Mike, can I just ask, do you know who he ordered from?
I don't, I forgot to, I don't know, didn't think to ask him, but I.
Every vendor we've talked to has said a minimum of 18 months. And that's multiple vendors, not just one.
Yeah, he, that's, he told me like, I think it was last Friday.
Okay.
But so regardless of when you get it, it's Donna, you're saying you make the first lease payment when you get the lease, which would be when you order it. Is that right? Or I think that's what we're trying to nail down, is when that lease payment would be.
When you borrow the money to pay for something,
Mhm.
then you make the payment. You start making payments to pay back the money that you borrowed.
So, and from Alex, from your perspective, that's when you order it, not when you get it.
But typically, we don't pay, as far as I know, we've never paid for the ambulance until we receive it. So we make the, we order the truck and then once it comes in, but it's always been 4 or 5 months from the time we order the truck that we get delivery of it. So it's always within the budget year. What we don't know is what it's going to be now.
Hmm.
so if I'm hearing Donna right, we're gonna borrow the money and then we're gonna start paying it back before we've actually paid the vendor.
Yes.
But we're
and
going
that's
to
what-
borrow, yes.
That's what
right.
happened with the
Yes,
last
right.
ambulance as
Okay.
well.
Right.
All right,
That's-
that's kind of what I was
that-
getting at. Like, we're gonna borrow, we're gonna borrow it sooner. I'm with you, Donna. I don't think there's any part of us that should be doing those little leases separately where there's no benefit to the town. I just kind of wanted to make sure I understood the structure of knowing something might not be in for 18 months. So we'll just have lots of cash on hand we didn't put out or sitting in escrow, and we'll start paying it back before we pay for the ambulance.
Or the other option is, put it in year 2. But that means putting the vehicle for Wellington Hill in year 2. So the 2 leases stay together.
And does that, where's our commitment to fund for him to order if it's not in a current fiscal year? How does that play into hand? If there's no money in this budget cycle for it, how do we go to town, to the Board of Finance or any of the steps that we need to, a public hearing on all of those things?
Yeah,
Maybe
year
he can just-
two.
He
Year
could
two,
just commit to it this year.
year 2 is not committed and is not approved by the taxpayers. So that would legally, neither of the departments would be able to pursue an order for a vehicle that they have no approval from the taxpayers for.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, I
So
think
good
you have
point.
And they're saying if we wait till
Good point.
next year, you might still have the same leapfrog problem to the next year.
That's what I think. Like, it sounds well and good, except they can't order anything this year if they don't have a commitment for dollars. So I just wanted to make sure I understood that we're just going to start paying on it, but we haven't actually purchased, we haven't actually received a product yet.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think the answer is it
That's
stays
good.
as it is.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Christina.
And
Okay.
I was good with leaving it as it is. I just want to make sure I understood because,
Yeah.
this will be the first time I've been part of this process where we anticipate something not coming in a year's time.
Okay. The other information is just for information sharing on how I arrived at what the bond payments, the budget for the bond payments would be. And I just wanted to share that with everybody and see if you agreed with my method of budgeting for bond payments, because this is going to be presented to the public, and I'm sure there's finance whizzes out there that could do this kind of thing. Anyway, better than I can. So I wanted you to know that for the $18 million, all right, I used a 2017 draft schedule from our financial advisor, and that's how I came up with a payment of 1.4 million. And then when I budgeted for the 2.9 million bond payment for the fire station addition, I used the library schedule, which was 3 million. And I figured that the 2.9 million was close to 3 million. So that the bond payment would be about 268,000 for that. And then when I did the 1.2 million for road improvements for Liska and Schofield, so I created my own amortization schedule, and it's pretty much a straight line schedule. And I don't really know how accurate that is, but I came up with a payment of $113,000 using my homemade schedule.
Donna, that seems, as far as a number just for planning purposes, that seems to be close with the numbers I had tried to come up with previously.
Okay.
I had not done the smaller leases, the smaller bonds, but I had done the bond on the school, and I had come up with a very similar, that 1 point something that you just said.
Okay, good. And every year, bond, because the interest goes down, so the payments decrease a little bit, and I have that figured in. Okay, so I think I'm good.
What was your high year again, the first year for that school payment again? 1 point.
I had 1.4. Then I dropped it down to 1.39.
Yep. Okay. I had just slightly higher, but keep in mind, I'm even less of a financial whiz than you are by a long shot. So my number was close.
Okay, good.
It looks right to me, but same. I trust your math better. Yeah. What are your other questions, Donna?
That's all I have.
Oh, okay. All right, so does anyone else have any questions or things to add before we vote on the year one plan? And I'm just gonna open up my screen so I can see if anyone's raising their hand. I don't see anybody raising their hand. So I guess we'll just go all in favor. I guess we could read through. Mike?
Aye.
Jen?
Aye.
Erica?
Hi.
Carrie? That was an aye. Melissa?
Aye.
And Stuart?
Aye.
And I don't know who iPad 3 is, if that's someone, I don't think it's Steph. So I think that's everybody who's on the board. And I vote aye as well. So that means that it passes. And I guess if someone's ready to make a motion on the rest of the plan, we can do that too. Mike?
I move that we accept years 2 through 5 of the current CIP plan as presented.
Melissa seconded. All right, discussion on that. And all I want to say is that what we're voting on is to send it to the selectmen, and then they can make changes to it or whatever before it goes to the Board of Finance. So what we're really voting on is really just to, not to approve it on behalf of the town, but just to approve it, to have it move forward in the process. So, okay, with that, any other questions or things people want to add? No? Okay, I guess we're ready to vote then. Mike? Yes. Okay, Jen?
Aye.
Thanks. Erica?
Yes.
Carrie?
Aye.
Melissa?
Aye.
Stuart?
Aye.
All right, I think that's it. And I vote aye as well. So I think that means that we are done for the time being. And thank you, everybody. Erica, when is the meeting for the CIP to selectmen presentation?
Next Tuesday, the 21st.
Okay, I think I had that.
Monday is a holiday.
Next Tuesday, so Tuesday, the 22nd. Yep, CIP is that at 5 o'clock?
No, next Tuesday will be 6:30.
Okay. All right, so all of you are welcome to attend that, and would be great if you could be there. And we'll see how it goes. And then from there, it'll be a Board of Finance meeting, so. But for now, I think our committee doesn't need to have any more meetings in the near term. But what I do want to do throughout this coming year is have some field trips and site visits, like not waiting until November to do it, but maybe in early fall, like September, we could do some looking around just so that we're ready for when the season comes back. So, does that sound good?
Christina.
Uh-huh.
Also on that, we talked a little bit, and maybe this is a question to go back to the selectmen. Maybe it isn't within our purview to decide this, but I think there's some value that somewhere in the system, we start looking at that longer range planning. 10-year planning that maybe doesn't even have much for numbers on it. So maybe 5 years, 5 through 10 could just be placeholders. But at least then we're talking about like longer life cycles of fire trucks, ambulances, dump trucks, and building projects and road projects. You can see further out, like Troy may know if he looks ahead 10 years, that he got a huge project coming that we need to be ready for. Maybe one of our town bridges needs to be replaced or something.
Agree. Erica?
If we're going to do that, and I completely agree with doing some field trips beforehand. I don't know how anyone else feels. Donna will probably be in agreement with me. We've talked in the past, COVID has really thrown for a loop some of the things I want to do and move the process of CIP so that it is not smack in the middle of the rest of our season, but if we're slightly ahead of that, so that when we come into budget season, it's one piece that's done. I think that might be worth investigating. So, if we, go into those projects in the early fall and then, maybe into the process. So as budgets are starting, these numbers are ready to be plugged in.
No, that's a good idea.
Yeah, most of you have lived this, and Donna certainly too, trying to manage it all at one time in our small town with our limited resources is challenging at best. And Donna does a good job holding it all together. But if we did this ahead of time, and not 6 months, but a month or two ahead of the schedule.
No, that sounds good. How does that sound to everybody, that we maybe start doing the site visits in September, even asking for submissions in September so we can know, and go around to Public Works, look at some bridges, look at the schools, get the fire departments.
If we could have the plan in draft before Christmas, that would be great, because then the budget season typically starts in January.
Yeah. Good plan. All right, we'll do it.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you, everyone. This is always a good
Thank you.
feeling when we're at this point, at least. So
Thank you, Christina, for taking the helm this year and getting us to the end.
Yeah, well,
Thank
we're
you,
not at
Donna.
the end.
Hopefully, The
Hopefully.
end of this lengthy period.
Yes. All right. Well, thanks, everyone. I guess we can entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a
Second.
second? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you,
Night.
Christina.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.